Okay, hello. This is Talking About the Who. My name's Paul Behrman, and I'm very happy to be joined today by one of the hosts of the Fisher Protocol YouTube channel, Bets Crockett. How you doing today, Bets?
I'm doing all right, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Good.
So we're going to be talking about the opening night of the Who's North American farewell tour,
Mm-hmm.
which Bets was at, and I wasn't, but one of us was. So that means our opinions are absolutely valid.
Yes. Yeah.
So before I forget, let's give a quick spoiler warning. We are probably going to be talking about the set list and spoiling it for anyone who um, is planning to go and see the Who and hasn't seen them yet and doesn't want to know the set list. Because I know I'm one of those sort of people. So just
Yeah.
a friendly warning that we may spoil the set list for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, so this was at the Amerant Bank Arena in Sunrise, Florida. On
Sunrise, Florida. Yeah, little suburb, really nice little suburb, home of the Cleveland Clinic. Just, I want to say, north of Miami.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, my American geography is really bad. So yeah.
My sunrise geography is pretty bad too, but we had a wonderful Uber driver named Bernardo. So shout out to Bernardo for getting us there and getting us home safely.
Oh, awesome. What sort of capacity is the arena? Do you know?
I'm not real sure about that. I would say maybe a few thousand. And I will say this. We were on our, the days leading up to the show, everybody's showing unsold seats at different venues. And we were sort of like, we had bought some mid-price tickets. So it was like, well, you know what, if it's not selling, then maybe we can get down closer. So I was just, as we were driving down there, I was monitoring the ticket prices. And they would say the lowest that they went about 2 hours before the show, about the lowest they went down for the nosebleeds up in the 300 section went for about $45. But I didn't see anything that really excited me that was closer. Those tickets stayed pretty much stable. So I was like, okay, whatever. There were definitely seats available online. But when we got seated and looked around, I would say the place was, if it wasn't sold out, it felt pretty close.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was pretty packed. Our section especially was packed. So they didn't do too badly, I think.
Yeah, I know there's been talk about whether they're going to be able to sell out the venues because I think it's a combination of some people aren't happy about the whole Zach Starkey thing, but also I think maybe some of the prices are a little
Yeah.
steep, should we say? But
Yeah. But this is what I will say. I'm here to disabuse anybody of that notion. Like, go to the show, honestly. And as for ticket prices, I know that, are they in New Jersey tonight or Philly? But the New Jersey show, the tickets are on Groupon. So those are probably the cheaper seats. But again, if you've got no plans and you want to see the Who, drop $30 for one of those seats, man. I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it. Absolutely, it's worth more than 30. But 30 is a really great price.
yeah, definitely. And it's literally your last chance. So
And that's the thing. I would have. Our seat, we had mid-price seats. I'd say I think I paid 125 for each one. Um, I'm a cheap seat person, but I wanted to get close, and I'm very small, so I can't see over people. So I like I don't want to be on the floor. Um, but I bought them like the day they went on sale because I knew, like, no matter what the show was going to be like, no matter what was happening, it was really important to be there for the final curtain.
mm,
Be there and see the boys off.
absolutely. And yeah, we'll go a bit deeper into the actual show and everything.
Hmm.
Um, but just to cover the basics, yeah, as we said, it was at the Amerant Bank Arena, Sunrise,
Yeah.
Florida, 16th of August, 2025. So Saturday just gone. It's Tuesday as we record this.
Yes.
And the lineup for this tour, along with Pete and Roger, is Lauren Gold on keyboards, Simon Townsend on guitar and vocals, John Button on bass, Scott DeVowers on drums, John Hogg on backing vocals, and Jodie Lynn Scott on percussion. She's not been in the lineup for I think about 3 years since they did the
Yeah.
acoustic gigs at the Albert Hall, and I'm personally very happy to see her in the lineup because
Yes.
I think when they first announced the Albert Hall shows, I was sort of messaging her back and forth and asked her if she was in the lineup, and she said, "I hope so." So it's obviously before everything had got finalised, but and she wasn't in that at that gig. But yeah, I'm really pleased to see her back with the Who.
Yes, I would. When they announced her, I was very very pleased to see that she was there.
And something I
No,
saw on. Oh, sorry, go on.
no orchestra this time,
Hmm.
and that was cool. That was cool. I'm not an orchestra hater, but I was glad to see the lineup, the configuration that they had this year.
Yeah, and I've sort of publicly spoken about my what's the word apprehension about going back to a stripped down, mostly electric lineup. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
sure about it, but I think it's definitely the right option if it was that compared with an orchestra. If it was one of the two for the farewell tour, it has to be stripped
Right.
back in terms
Yes.
of personnel. Um, yeah, I think that's the basics covered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you were at the gig. Uh,
Yes.
I've only seen it on YouTube, but which is obviously nowhere near as good. Or yeah, it's nowhere near as good as being there, basically. But you were
No.
there, so what were your overall thoughts on the night and the gig and everything?
I am so glad that I went. And that's why I'm saying if anybody's on the fence today about the quality of the show or the prices or whatever, go. Absolutely go. If I had sat this out, I couldn't forgive myself. In fact, I've got a friend, a big Who friend who was here who decided at the last minute probably not to go. And I need to message her and say, you're going to have your old man unask some tickets, plane tickets for you because you have to see this. We've talked before. I told you that, I was a little apprehensive and quote, managing my expectations because I had seen the 2022 tour, which was good, which is really good. But Roger had some issues with that, and then I saw Roger solo, and Roger had some issues. So I went into this. I'm not gonna lie, kind of apprehensive, but again, I felt like it was important as a Who fan, no matter what happened, no matter how long they played, that I was present and there, and it was I was just blown away, absolutely blown away. And I'm glad. I have no regrets. So like I said, tonight, if you're sitting there in wherever you are, and you're like, I don't know, oh, what's it going to be? I mean, they're 80 and 81. Like, go, take it from me. You want to be there.
Yeah, and I really regret not going to the Albert Hall in March, and yeah, and managed to watch the. I think oh yeah, I watched Zach Starkey's live stream and then watched it back later on YouTube, and I think I was pleasantly surprised actually just how good it
Yeah.
was,
Hmm.
and watched some of the Italy gigs as well, and I'm personally just it's just really pleasing how good they sound.
They came hard. Like, all these interviews that are, when we do these things, and I always say, yeah, they should do an acoustic show and just talk and have it. No, honest to God, I take back everything. They came in hard and they didn't stop. And they weren't so loud. They weren't Madonna loud where I was in pain, but they brought it. Now Scott, I think we talked about that. Scott did use. It looked like he did use the rubber cymbals, so he had like the electronic cymbals and all that. But they didn't have him plexiglass off. I mean, the instruments were all the real deal, and they played hard, and they played everything at like a level, at 11. They just, I was shocked and surprised. And Pete was windmilling. Rogers sounded great. I think I texted you like from the show. It was like one of the few times I picked up my phone because I didn't even want to look at my phone. I was like that enraptured. I didn't want to miss anything. But I think I sent you a text. I was like, they sound fantastic. So I take everything back about, oh, do an acoustic show, do unplugged. no, they brought it. They played at a huge level of intensity, and like you kind of have to if you're going to call it a day, and they did.
Yeah, I think you're right. And yeah, I woke up Sunday morning and saw I'd had a message from 2 in the morning UK time that just said, they're doing it. They sound great.
That was me. I know I forgot that it was like 2 a.m. your time. I was just like, this is so great.
Oh, I'm still getting my head around UK US time differences when I'm
Yeah,
messaging people about the podcast. And oh, I should have sent that. It's probably 6 in the morning. That's probably a really bad
that's
time.
okay. I'm an early riser.
Um, yeah, I agree though that we were both saying about how we'd like to see a more acoustic sort of stripped back lineup for their
Hmm.
final shows. And I think I would still quite like to see that, but yeah, they are definitely what they're doing is definitely working.
Yes, yes. And I don't want to give it too much away because I kind of want people to come in the way I did. But I will say this, because we talk a lot about um, no John and no Keith, and in the 2022 tour, the backdrop was sort of, it looked like a shag carpet, a colorful shag carpet. There wasn't really any pyrotechnics. It was just the orchestra and the band, yada yada. And there was a part in that show where they did the rock, and then you had like all these world events from like 64 up, and then they showed Keith in like the 78 era, and then they showed John, and it was the clip from uh, Success Story, from Kids Are All Right. And that was sort of, and you were sort of like, oh yeah, John and Keith were both in this band. That you kind of had that kind of thing. This time with the backdrop and the animated backdrop and everything, they kept John and Keith to the fore. So they were constantly up there, and you weren't reminded that they were part of the band. Their images were a huge part of that show, and it was like, I don't want to be trite and be like, and they were looking down on Pete and Roger, but it did feel like that. Whoever put that animated sequence, the animated or computer generated or whatever they were, that really added a whole lot to the show. In fact, it was just gorgeous. There was a whole sequence that was like a sort of an animated thing that started out with Keith's champagne bottle and just kind of got silly, 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 and it was great. Everything, it looked beautiful, and like I said, you were very aware of John and Keith throughout the entire show.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice approach considering it's it is the farewell tour and everything. And
Absolutely. They were a constant presence. It does open up with a wonderful sort of sound collage. The lights go down, and then there's a sort of sound collage of different interviews. And I will, one spoiler is that the John part of it is John complaining about Magic Bus. So you got to play A for 8 and then 6. I
oh,
heard that, like, that's that. He hates the Magic Bus. Oh my God.
I was wondering about that because I've not seen the whole of that collage or
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it, but
Hmm.
I noticed towards the end it's got all these interesting quotes from the band and everything, and then just
Yeah.
before, what was really nice is that Pete. It has there's a clip of Pete talking, and it's all you don't see the members. It's just all sort of what they say appears on the screen,
Yes.
basically like a
Yes.
transcript. But Pete
Yes.
mentions playing Monterey and when they first came to America, and
Eric
Eric
Burden.
Burden introducing them on stage, and then Eric
Yes.
Burden's voice from Monterey introduces the band on stage, and then they actually walk out onto the
It
stage in
was
Florida.
fantastic.
But
Yeah,
it's
you were
interesting
so
because
hype at that point.
yeah, I could well imagine. But it's quite interesting. I think it's just before or in between Pete mentioning Eric Burden and Eric Burden's introduction, they suddenly have that bit from 30 Years of Maximum R&B Live with Pete saying, I really love playing Magic Bus because of the
Yes.
rhythm. And then straight away, John says, I really hated playing Magic
Right,
Bus.
Magic Bus. It's I for 8 minutes.
I mean, I've recently listened to the San Francisco gig from the Who's Next box set, and you can totally see why he hates playing Magic Bus. But
Well,
but going back to that opening collage, it's interesting how they insert that little bit about Magic Bus just before the main introduction to the band on stage, which I thought
mhm.
that's a weird place to put it, but it made me think, have they put it there because it's almost their way of saying to the audience, we are not playing Magic Bus.
John, if you're up there or down there, we are not playing Magic Bust.
Oh, is it their ultimate tribute to John? Like, we're not
Yeah,
playing
like,
Magic
hey, guess
Bus.
what? Guess what's not happening tonight, guys? Magic Bus is off the menu.
I bet someone still shouted for it though.
Oh God, I told you back in 2000, like Pete just lost his mind over some guy yelling "Magic Bus" at. And I can't recall if they did it or not back then, but he got highly indignant, and it was, of course, I've said before, any show where Pete loses his shit is a great show.
Yeah.
He maintained this time, but it was still a great show. But he was very he was very yeah, he was all right. He didn't get mad at anybody.
But
Roger grumped a little bit. Roger, yeah, I don't want to dwell there. To be honest with you, there weren't very few. There were very few miscues.
hmm.
And so I don't want to go to, because Roger made the point later on. He's like, y'all are not going to remember all the good stuff. You're just going to remember the fuck ups. Um, but Roger did kind of muff Love Ain't for Keeping just a little bit. Not it was noticeable, but it wasn't a deal breaker. But he crabbed up a little bit. He got them little claws snapping and scuttled a little bit, but then he calmed back down, and then the rest of the show was, he just kept going.
Yeah, I always think it's probably worth mentioning the mistakes simply because I don't want to say the Who are renowned for making mistakes, but
Yeah.
it's part of a Who show, I think, and
Yes.
we don't mind it as fans at all. And
No. Yeah.
I think it's always worth mentioning. And yeah, I noticed Roger did kind of lose his way a little bit with some songs, like I think Behind Blue Eyes was one example I remember, and even the
Yeah.
intro to See Me Feel Me. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it's problems with his in-ear monitors and he's not hearing it correctly, but he sort of just went out of time slightly. But to be fair to the band, each time they managed to just almost follow what he was doing and get back on track. So,
Right. And
well,
um, my best friend who knows a lot about music, she plays in several bands, and she came with me. And what she said was, her observation was that she felt like there were two things maybe happening here. That she noticed that when Roger would sort of hold his hand like to the side of his head or to the front of his head, and she said that when you're on stage and you've got that kind of thing going, you can sometimes get this effect that's like in your head. And so she was wondering if maybe that was the case with him. The other thing that she mentioned too was that she felt like at some point Roger might have been, and I guess the term would be sort of vamping, like he was elaborating on the song, if you will. He was maybe not going off script so much, but elaboration with the song. And so, but the band was going ahead,
hmm,
and so then you have to sort of pull back a little bit so Roger can embellish and then move it forward. But again, nothing that was, you know, nothing that was really overly noticeable. I felt it all flowed really well. They did really well. When Roger muffed the sort of the end of the Love Ain't for Keeping, and like I said, he visibly. I remember Mia saying, "Oh, he's mad," and then you're sort of holding your breath, going, "Okay, are we going? Are we continuing?" But there were a bunch of people yelling, "We love you, we love you!" Like everybody was sort of like, "Dude, it's okay. Like, let's keep it going, dude. You're doing great." So yeah, Roger, we love you. Don't worry about muffing it a little bit. It's okay. Y'all worked with Keith Moon for like what, 23, 24. Like this is nothing. Y'all got this.
yeah,
Muffing some lyrics ain't compared to falling the back off the back of the drum kit, passed out. So more power to you.
yeah, exactly. And I do hope that Roger and Pete do understand that the fans don't mind the mistakes. We actually kind of like it.
Yes.
Again, like I said, it's part of a Who
Yes.
show. We kind of expect it, and
Yes.
it's totally fine.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
but yeah, certainly they never got to a point where they had to restart a song or anything like that.
No,
Um,
I would say that the intro to Behind Blue Eyes took a minute, but again, nothing to where it was like, oh my, oh my god, oh my god, like are we, it was fine.
yeah, was that his like a battery pack? It's slipping off his belt or something, and then the
Yes,
roadie
he
had
had
to
to have
come
it.
on, and I saw him say to the audience, "He's not playing with my ass."
Yes, that was one of those moments, and there was another joke later on. I can't remember the whole thing where Pete asked Roger about the state of his organ.
Yeah, great double entendre work from Pete Townsend there.
Exactly, a little levity there. It was very amusing.
Yeah, was that off the Barbara O'Reilly was struggling with the harmonica because his lips were so dry, and
That was mentioned, yeah, and that was
yeah,
the thing. We didn't have Katie this time out, but we did. We had the harmonica, which again, and Pete's mentioned this before that for in Roger's case, to be that singer, to have that stage presence, to have that lung power, and to do those songs and everything, like that's athleticism.
hmm.
You have to be in good shape to do. We go back to when we talked with the last podcast I was on with you, but I talked about the 82 show and them doing Who Are You? And I think it was Who Are You? And Roger running through the entire song. Roger running in place through the entire song and singing it. And I was like, what, is going on here? Like, dude, And so for him to be able to do all of this again at 81 years old, to remember these songs and sing them and nail those screams and whatever, that takes a tremendous amount of stamina on his part.
I think it's always worth remembering that he is 81 years old.
Yes, Pete is 80, and Pete looked great. Like I said, he was pulling off some windmills and stuff. He was doing his thing. They were great. They really were.
And it's quite a long set list. I think it's 23 songs in total. So
It was 2 hours. We were like, okay, so we have this Uber driver Bernardo who's great, and Bernardo's like, we're like, Bernardo, can you pick us up after the show? And he was like, well, how long is the show going to be? And I literally told him, I was like, well, it could be 2 hours or it could be 30 minutes. We don't know. I don't know like how long this is going to be. Okay, again, my experience with Roger solo was him having a vocal issue and shutting it down probably about 45 minutes in. So, we don't know, so it's like, Bernardo, we text you? And he was like, absolutely. So I look over at Mia's phone about probably 10:45, and she's like, Bernardo, if you're available, we're gonna, we'll be at the Sawgrass Mills at 11 o'clock. So yeah, 2 hours. They played for 2 hours. Pretty much nonstop.
yeah, that's the other thing. There wasn't that much in between talking or anything. I mean, there was a little bit, but it did feel like they weren't messing about. They were going to get this whole set list in the 2 hours, and yeah,
Yeah.
fair play to them.
Exactly. I was wore out, and I'm 20 years younger than them. Yeah. And I will say this real quick about age and everything like that. A little digression here. Some of y'all on our listeners need to go talk to your grandmas and grandpas, because there were some drunk grandmas and grandpas at that show. Some of your meemaws and papaws were falling over. They were falling over the seats. One lady got sat down on the ground by our seats. Those people were drunk. So your GGs and pop pops might have a little bit of a drinking problem. You might want to go address it to them. The crowd they weren't unruly, but they were definitely feeling. There's the lady in front of us who sat down in the aisle. She was like, I just want to hear Tommy. That's what I love Tommy. Yeah, go talk to them. They were drunk.
Well, it's the Who's farewell tour. It's a very emotional time for some people. So,
It was.
and yeah, we got a little bit of Tommy. We got Pinball Wizard
Yes.
and See Me Feel Me, and
Yes.
but more of Quadrophenia as I guess the set list isn't that different from what they were doing at the two Italy gigs in July and then the Albert Hall
Mm-hmm.
before that in March.
Yeah.
But there was at least one big surprise, which was Going Mobile played live for the first time.
Well, here's the thing about that. This is everybody's saying that, and I'm kind of perplexed because we saw Simon do that on Roger's solo tour. So for me, I was like, oh yeah, they're doing Simon's doing Go Mobile, which my best friend Mia, that's like I think that is probably the highlight for her. She loves because she's like his voice is so good and everything. So we saw Simon do that when we saw Roger in Clearwater a few years ago. But Simon's great, and I think it also might give Roger and Pete a little bit of a moment to catch your breath and that kind of thing. But that's a lot of fun, and it just goes.
Yeah, so Dante DiCarlo, who we both know from Who's Next tribute band, we were messaging each other yesterday, and he did say about Going Mobile. Um, and it's a shame that Pete didn't sing it, considering it's the first
Yeah.
time the Who have done it. And I guess that quite a few people have seen Simon sing it live during Roger's solo shows.
Yes.
So maybe it doesn't feel quite so special, but I think Pete even says he can't hit the high notes anymore. So
No, and Simon's voice is very similar to Pete, so it's all
mm,
it's you're getting the spirit of the song. It is such a fun song.
yeah. And they've now done every song from Who's Next live. And I think looking at the set list, they actually did 7 songs from Who's Next at the gig.
It was a Who's Next um, heavy set, which again give the people what they want. People love Who's Next, so yeah, let's do it. For me, I feel like, and maybe just I don't know, maybe I'm not that well versed or something. For me, the surprise was Cry If You Want. That's not one you know what I'm saying? That was not
Mm.
one I kind of expected, but it's a great song, and I was glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's kind of off the back of My Generation, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, it's a just looking at the set list, it's a really good set list. Essentially,
It You
it's
do you definitely get all the points for sure. I gotta open it up.
yeah. And another song they did, which I don't think they did in Italy, but I know they did at the Albert Hall, was "I Can See for Miles." And going back to Roger, I in particular, I really liked his vocals on that one. I think it really suits his. He's kind of giving it a kind of bluesy delivery, but
Hmm.
with that sort of 81-year-old lived-in voice. But
Yeah.
it sounds great. It really suits it.
And the interesting thing is when we saw them in 2022, that was when Roger's monitor had gone whack, and he couldn't do the song, and he stopped it like in the middle of it, and that's why he kind of I can't hear a fucking thing, and threw his monitor down and walked off. So we didn't get the full I Can See for Miles, and we also didn't get Won't Get Fooled Again that day, but we got Naked Eye, which I'm very happy with. So I was glad to hear definitely glad to hear him pull off I Can See for Miles.
Yeah, it was a really good version of it as well. And
Yes.
I was looking at Brian Cahew's backstage blog about the Italy gig rehearsals, and he at the end of the post he there's a handwritten set list. I think it's actually Brian Cahew's list of the songs they did during that rehearsal, and
Hmm.
I made a note of 4 of the songs that are really big surprises. Really, I'm not sure if they're going to appear on this tour, but they did rehearse a few days before the first Italy gig, and they rehearsed Relay, Mike Post theme, Long Live Rock, and maybe most surprising of all, My Wife.
One of the guys on Blue Sky that one of my mutuals on Blue Sky is a guy called BS Detector. I'm gonna throw his name out there. And he mentioned that like he's kind of bummed that they don't do any John songs anymore. And he points out too that Roger did sing on some John songs, so it's not that unusual. But I would love to hear My Wife, and I hope they do pull it out. I really really do. And Relay as well. And of course Naked Eye. Like I just think Naked Eye is fantastic, and I think it's so suited to Roger's voice, and I know he likes it. And I'll point out something too that I think it was interesting. I noticed that in 2022 and this year that we always start out in Florida, and I know Pete's got kind of an affinity for Florida. He talks about visiting Tom Wright at his family's house out there. It's like a little teeny town outside of Tampa, and that's where in the Who in America, the Who in America book, where the Keith, somebody gave Keith a gun, a little shotgun, and he shot it at Tom's sister, and then had to apologize. But I think that's the place where Pete fell in the swamp that inspired him for The Seeker. So I know he's very fond of it. So I wonder if you know the just the idea of being in Florida and reminding him, like I said, I know he's very fond of Florida for some reason. For some reason, I live here. I can't find it. But I like to see that The Seeker was there, and I'd like to think it's because, like I said, his affinity for Florida.
Yeah, that would make sense. One
Mhm.
place they're not playing on this tour, which I'm quite surprised at, and speaking of that, the Who in America book is Detroit.
Yes, I was shocked, really shocked about that, because that Detroit's kind of where the seed was planted in America. Like before they were, before they came over, it was Detroit radio stations that were. I want to say that what was this? Was it My Generation that hit number one on Detroit playlists or something, or was it? I can't explain, but one of those. Yeah, I'm surprised, really kind of surprised about that.
Yeah, and also the playing at the Grandy Ballroom in Detroit when, in particular, when I think they were playing Tommy for the first time, and
Mhm.
it just seemed to be the one of the venues where they felt like, yeah, this is actually working.
Yes,
Because I think they'd grown weary of America a little bit, but gigs like the Grandy Ballroom kind of rejuvenated them, I guess. And
yes. Detroit fans, Detroit Who fans are like, I mean, they have a real relationship with the band. So I'm shocked that they didn't do that. So guys, if you make a little stop, maybe go, see your fan. I think that is yeah, yeah.
just quickly to go back to potentially doing John Entwistle songs. There was another thing in Brian Cahew's blog from the Italy rehearsals. I wrote down a quote. He said, "When I told Pete that any crowd would erupt if they opened with Heaven and Hell, he laughed out loud. But you know it would be popular. I don't think they're going to do Heaven and Hell, but I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
quite telling that Pete just laughed when when he even just mentioned it. It would be interesting. That's one
It,
thing.
I mean, it was, well, Ethan has referred to it as a seat filler, which I'm like, this is where you find your seats. I was like, dude, shut up. Heaven and Hell is awesome. But yeah, I don't know that I was always, it was always a surprise to me to find out that they used to open with Heaven and Hell. I was like, really, that would be kind of cool. I would be into it, but then that, I don't know how many other fans would be into
And going back to the orchestra, I always thought it was a bit of a shame they didn't do things like Had Enough from Who Are You? Because I think that really would have suited
it.
having a live orchestra play it.
Well, and then again, Roger does the vocals on that, so that would have been a really good fit.
But yeah, speaking of Roger, I mean, it kind of, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I think it always has to be said. He does sound amazing vocally.
He
He
does.
really does.
He really nailed it. Like I said, for the he was great. Somebody made the comment like has he sold his soul, so to speak, to get that final burst. But God, he was good. He was so good. And I will tell you this. Um, you've got these huge screens, so you because they're little tiny, they're ants, from where I'm sitting. But he nailed that scream on Won't Get Fooled Again. Just bam. And the look on his face when he was done, he was so tickled and so pleased. And it's, almost like the performing Roger mask kind of came off for a moment. And you saw this person who was just so happy that he did it, and he got this big smile on his face, and everybody was like, yeah, you just saw it was a little bit vulnerable, but it was just absolutely heartwarming to see him just like, yeah, I did that. I can still do it.
Yeah, I was going to bring up whether there was any kind of minus points that were worth discussing. And I think for me, It's kind of ties in with. I've got one minor complaint, I guess. I'm not even sure it's a complaint, but one minor thing for me, which I'll come to in a bit. But I've also got one major thing, and I
Uh-huh.
think it's he probably is doing the scream, but at the same time, I think that the original scream is being piped
It,
through.
I'm sure it is. But
Yeah.
but we're we're just gonna say that it's all 100% him.
But I think what the major thing is for me is that I don't want him to be doing the scream personally because I know he doesn't want to do it. He says at his solo shows that he's retired from it and he gets the
Yeah.
crowd to do it at his solo gigs.
Hmm.
But and also the thing that actually really bugs me is that he doesn't sing the "Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss" where it's supposed to be. He kind of
Yeah,
he sings it later on in that section. That really irritates me.
it's a little cockeyed. It does sort of like, well, hey, wait a minute. But again, like you said, it's a quibble, and I get it, But I'm just impressed that you can still do it at 81. I hope that I can. I don't know. I don't do much I don't do much stuff like that. But I hope that I'm as well put together at 81 as he is. There's
Yeah,
there's a lot of firepower still in that little body. So good on you, Roger.
yeah. If he is doing it along with the original Scream, which I think is being
Yeah.
piped through, but if he is also doing it at the same time, then yeah, you have to say fair play for at least giving it a go.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, we don't watch Star Wars and go, that's a dude in a big suit like Chewbacca. That's just that's just a dude in a that's just, or for Darth Vader. That's just David Prowse, in a big suit. No, that's 100% Roger.
Yeah, okay. No, it's definitely 100% Roger. That's
Yes,
definite.
yes,
That's a
and
fact.
whether it's 100% Roger from 1970 or 100% Roger in 2025, we will take it. Absolutely.
Well, staying on the sci-fi theme, I mean, Doctor Who would meet himself at various points, so it's a kind of a similar thing here, isn't it?
Roger would have been a great Doctor Who. I don't know why they never got him on one of those specials. He's got the hair. He's got
Yeah.
Doctor Who meets the Who. I mean,
I never thought we'd be talking about Doctor Who on this episode, but there you go.
it was inevitable. We had to get there at some point.
I think the one Who slash Doctor Who connection I can think of is didn't John Pertwee play a role in one of the Tommy productions?
Yes, the Lou Reisner one. The one
Hmm.
the yeah not okay. Now I take it back. Um, Not the one, not the, no, because Richard Harris, I think, plays the doctor in the Lou Reisner one. But Pertwee was there. Bill Oddie was there too, wasn't he?
Oh, really?
Yes. There's a picture of Keith, Pertwee, and Oddie doing, yeah.
What a lineup that is. I really want to hear John Pertwee be the Doctor now, as in
Thank you.
the Doctor in Tommy, not
I
Doctor.
just want to know what Bill Oddie's doing.
What role does he play?
I have no clue, but he's there on the stage, and Peter Sellers.
Yeah,
What was Peter Sellers in that? No, okay, so Peter Sellers was also the doctor, I think, in one of those
I
productions.
think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Bill Oddie. Yeah, if anyone knows, please make us aware in the comments what role Bill Oddie played in Tommy. Which
Absolutely.
again is a question I didn't think I'd be asking today, but there you go.
Here we are.
But yeah, despite my that minus point for me, Roger does sound fantastic, and it is
Yes,
truly amazing that he's managing to
absolutely.
do it. And yeah, let's hope it carries on for the rest of the tour like that because that's another thing. It was the opening night of the tour, and as we said, it was pretty tight for an
Yes.
opening night. And I think they've did Pete mention on stage they'd been rehearsing a bit more than they used to because
He mentioned something to the effect of that they didn't really, in the past, they didn't rehearse. And so I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the effect of we never used to. There was a whole thing that he talked about Tommy. they had done that one rehearsal at that recreational center. You've seen the pictures. John's got the half stash. And that was where Keith turned to him and said, when they were rehearsing Tommy, that he's like, I think this is going to be a hit. And so he did talk, but he said that's like only the one rehearsal we ever did back then was that.
Yeah, because that didn't come through on the video. It was hard to hear what he was saying, but also
Yeah.
people were talking around whoever was filming this gig, and I'm thinking, you're talking while Pete Townsend's talking. What's wrong with you?
Look. I'm getting back to drunk grandmas and grandpas. We had three guys behind us who didn't even know each other. They had just met. I know all this because I could hear them behind me the whole time, and they drank beer and talked and talked and talked and talked till finally we got to TN Theater, and I had to turn around and be like, guys, enough. Like, stop, just you're done. But when the show was over, they're leaving and they're like, that's the best show we've ever seen. I'm like, how do you know? You talked all the way through it. Again, I tried not to let it, I was like, I tuned them out because I was like, this is too special. I don't want to have to fight some 75-year-old man, which, but there was, again, there were a lot of drunk people who were, who were like maybe background noise for that because they were too busy just getting crunk.
It's so annoying when people talk at gigs, and
Yeah, and these guys, like I said, they didn't even know each other, and they're like, "Hey, man, back in '82, I saw Def Leppard with and their birthday," and I'm like, "Man, shut up!"
yeah, I don't blame you at all. Um,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. Obviously, I'm glad someone filmed the gig because I got to watch it on YouTube. But I don't understand the mentality of go to a gig and filming the whole thing.
Right, and that yeah, that was the thing. It felt. I tried to take, as you well know, did try to take a couple of pictures. They did not come out, but it felt to me almost sacrilegious to
Hmm.
pull out my camera and flip through because the guy next to me, he's looking at fishing videos. I'm like, dude, but it just felt it didn't feel right to pull all that gear out and just other than messaging you and messaging Tom and Ethan and then a couple of my group chats and be like, oh my god, I kept my phone down for the most of it because I just wanted to be present and attend to what was happening on the stage. I felt that was important.
Yeah, don't blame you for that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like there was quite a crowd there. Someone watching fishing videos. That's yeah,
Maybe that's Florida.
yeah. Started to understand more and more why you're slightly putting Florida down. But there you go.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, that's probably a good segue to as you mentioned, making friends and people you didn't meet before. Didn't you make a new
Oh,
friend in the merch
did I make
queue?
a
Do
new
you want?
friend of the month? Yes, I did. So big shout out to Mark from St. Petersburg. I don't know if our dear listeners know this, but my friend Paul Wren, tattoo artist, but we've had a 3-year ongoing project of putting the Who onto my arms. And so I've got my little Keith Moon battle vest on and I know what I'm doing and I'm walking around and people are grabbing me and be like, you look so cool. And I'm like, thank you. And promoting the podcast and promoting the Fisher Protocol while I do it. And we got into the merch line was long. It was about a 25 to 30 minute wait to get anything. And I have my merch, so
Oh,
in front
cool.
of the show because I know people have been asking like, what did they have? Um, so there were some people hollering about my arms and that kind of thing. And then there was a guy behind us, very nice looking guy named Mark from St. Petersburg. And we got to talking, and my best friend had to go get a drink and see some other friends that we had recognized there. And as we moved forward, we're talking, 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 talking. And when we got up just about to the counter, he said, now listen, I'm going to put you in front of me so that you can go first. And I said, okay, that's great. And when we were done, I got my little bag, my little Who bag. And I turned around and I said, Mark, it was really great to meet you. And I went to hug him and he kissed me. So I came out of the crowd and I saw Mia and I was like, Mark just kissed me. So, Mark, if you're out there, you started my gig out absolutely perfectly. And Thank you for everything. He did say he was going to subscribe to the podcast and he was going to subscribe to the Fisher Protocol. So, Mark, if you're hearing this, big shout out to you. You started my night out right. Thank you so much.
Fair play, fair play.
Absolutely.
Do you want to show us your merch while we're on the
Yes.
subject?
So just I got one shirt here that I'm wearing.
Oh,
Got a
nice.
lot of compliments on it at the hotel in the lobby the next morning. Um, the second shirt I really enjoy. It has it can you see there's the front, and then you turn it around, and the back looks like this. It looks like it almost has the Holiday Inn kind of vibe to it. Somebody said it was more Howard Johnson's, and I was like, yeah. But it has all the tour dates. There were there were some shirts that had that sort of tie dye effect that had the band about 1971 on it. There was one that I believe has the Quadrophenia scooter on the front that is about to become available on the Who's website with those limited edition posters and T-shirts. I think it's the same one. It did say Sunrise across it, and then there was a regular black and white shirt that said the Who. There were several hoodies. Um, there was drink koozies and that kind of thing. There was a limited, they one thing I love about them is that they will get artists to do posters for specific gigs. And so this is the Sunrise poster. I had to get this because I have a bigger apartment now, so I have lots of wall space. But this is the poster for the specifically for the Sunrise gig. And then, oh, last but not least, I did actually put out some money for a program this time because I'm so bad about buying program, like missing the program and then going back and buying it on eBay. But this is the program. It is great. Just a big overview of the band's year. So I had a little money and I was like, I'm gonna go to program. Talks about the band. Um, the various members of the band that were there that night and their CVs, as it were. Lots of wonderful pictures. And Zach is there, and Kenny is there, and Doug Sandem is there as well.
Oh, that's nice.
So an actual real over a real trip down memory lane, as it were, where all the members are mentioned.
Oh, you done well there. That's really good.
I had a little money and I was like, you know what? I just want to have some fun. I just want to, if it's there, no FOMO, let's just get it. So I did, I spent a little.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so going back to the gig itself, are there any particular pluses about the gig that stood out to you or anything like that?
Yeah. The fact that we talk about the tripartite nature of Who gigs, which is you get the crowd pleasers, the pop at the beginning, and that's something that's mentioned a lot in the program is that the Who were never afraid to go back through those old hits, the
Mhm.
old pop songs before they became the rock band. And then you get the songs in the middle that you kind of have to earn, the ones that are a little more difficult, not as much crowd pleasers, but and then you get all the cookies and candy and rewards at the end with Won't Get Fooled Again and Baba and that kind of thing. This gig wasn't really so much about that, except for, I mean, the middle part, Cry If You Want, I mentioned, was kind of there in the middle. Not a song that a lot of people know. Um, this one felt like all bangers all the time. But the finale, you know, um, with Tea and Theater and Song Is Over. Um, at that point, I know that I was starting to get teary eyed because that both of those songs, especially Tea and Theater, is that sort of acknowledgement that we're the last two guys standing, and it's just you and me, and we're going to sit down and have a cup of tea and think about the old times and that kind of thing. For Clint, thinking about it. So the wind down, the two songs at the end of the night where I became very emotional. So that's where it really started to set in, that this isn't just a regular concert. You're not going to see them together again. Well, and again, I don't know that we're ruling out any little charity things or anything like that. And I think Pete said that, like, we're not ruling, but this is the last tour, and that's where it all sort of came home to me, that this is it. You came to say goodbye, and now you're saying goodbye, and so that for me is a big highlight.
Yeah, and there was a nice little sort of Pete sat down to play Tea and Theatre, and Roger just comes over at the end, sort of like just touch him on the shoulder, and Pete sort of reciprocates. It's just, yeah, just a
Yes.
nice moment. And you were talking earlier about the visuals on the screen, and when they were
Yes.
playing Tea and Theatre, um, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but at one point the visuals were showing a television set followed by a
Yes.
car in water, and I just thought, my
Yes.
instant thought was that's an unusual choice to have on screen during tea and theatre, and then I thought, but maybe it's a tribute to Keith, and therefore it's kind of fitting in a way.
It is that idea that we've had these wild times. We've had TVs thrown out of hotel windows. We've had cars and pools, not really, but 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 we've shared these wild, horrible times. And then you see the graphic of here comes the teapot, and it is like, well, look at all these things that we lived through. Look at all these things that we experienced. And now again, it's just you and I, and we're just sitting and talking about those times.
Yeah, really fitting to have that towards the end of the set, and
Hmm.
and they ended with the song is over. A kind of edited version of the song is over. They've kind of cut it in half, haven't they? Which is, I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. I guess I understand it because I think they've slightly changed the lyrics to make it a bit more fitting to what is actually happening. The fact it's their farewell tour and everything.
Yeah.
And it's probably a really tough song to sing at the end of a set.
Well,
So
I mean, we have a history, don't we?
well, there's that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a history with that one. But again, having those two songs round out the evening was just terribly touching. And again, if our listeners go, be prepared, get the hanky out. In fact, my best friend Mia, she did bring a package of Kleenex for me, because she was worried that I would just start sobbing. I held up pretty well, but I did get very misty eyed at the
No, that's totally understandable.
end. Hmm.
And I think for me, one plus point worth mentioning is Scott DeVowers on drums. I thought he absolutely killed it. I really do.
I watched him a lot, because I just was sort of gauging. He seemed to be having a blast. He seemed to really have a really good time. Pete introduced him after Won't Get Fooled Again. They introduced the band members, and then they go into Tea and Theater, and he got to Scott. Scott was the last person he introduced, and he was sort of like, I don't know, I don't remember this. I fucking don't remember this guy's name. Which is very funny considering all of the drama that we had back in April. And I thought when they announced him, I was kind of worried a little bit that you'd get some fans, boo, we don't want Zach, kind of thing. And Zach is great. Don't get me wrong. I love Zach. I think Scott, one of the things about Scott that stood out for me was, number one, he beat those drums. He did a really great job, but also that he was having a huge amount of fun, and it was very
Hmm.
apparent.
Yeah, that's it. Um, yeah, it's kind of ironic that Pete says, "Oh, I can't remember the guy's name because I don't think they're pronouncing his surname right. I think they're calling him Scott DeVos."
Yeah.
And I've had it from the horse's mouth. It's Scott Devours, and I'm
Hours.
sure
Okay.
he wants you to call him Devours, but he's probably not going to say anything. So I'll say it on his behalf.
Thank you. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Because I was doing divorce, but devours is got it.
I think, yeah,
Again, he was having a huge amount of fun.
yeah, I think he did a great job. I really do. And like I said, it's great to have Jodie back on stage. And
Yes.
something else Brian Cahill had mentioned in the backstage blog was one reason for getting Jodie in was got the quote here. We need her boost of stage energy and her positivity off stage, which I can, yeah,
Mhm.
totally understand because she is such a
Yeah.
positive person, having got to know her over the past sort of year or so. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And somebody mentioned too. I noticed, I think on Reddit that because I like again, I can't see that far back. I'm in the relatively cheap seats. Was that even though Scott had like the rubber cymbals, the electronic, Jody had actual percussion. There was nothing insulated or anything like that with her, but she was farther back on the stage. So.
mm. Yeah, and I think Scott's kit is an acoustic kit, but it's got, I think they're called Jobbicky triggers. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that
Mhm.
right, but they're kind of built into their heads. It's something
Yeah,
like that. So it's kind of half acoustic, half electric. But
yeah.
for anyone who
It
isn't
sounded
sure,
good. I couldn't tell any people, real drum heads. They like no.
mm,
Again, I don't. I'm not like a musician, but I thought it sounded really great.
yeah. And I think that is the main takeaway that, yeah, the band do sound fantastic. And again, Roger's 81, Pete's 80. Um, and yeah, it works what they're doing. It really does.
Mhm.
I mentioned a little minor thing that kind of niggles me a little bit, and I think I mentioned it during the Royal Albert Hall video we did back in March, early April. But I still think there's a couple of songs in particular it's Can't Explain in My Generation. I think they kind of are lacking a little bit of edge that I think those songs need in particular. But it's only those two really. And even
Yeah,
then, it's only a very minor thing, but that opening few chords of I Can't Explain just hasn't got the same bite at the moment. And
yeah.
I think
Well,
Pete just needs to turn his overdrive on just for that bit. That's all he needs to do.
well, you have to understand too. Like if you're singing "My Generation," I mean, how much is your heart in it? If you got to sing, "I hope I die before I get old and I'm 81."
Yeah.
This goes to that whole thing about Roger really rocking in our wheelchairs and Pete getting super mad. Well, you're not in your wheelchairs yet, but
Yeah.
here you are.
If you just said to that guy who thought the Who were going to last a year in 1965, guess what's going to
Mhm.
be happening in 60 years' time?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll bring that up real quick if I can make a plug.
Yeah, sure.
Speaking of this band will last 3 years or until we turn 21 and get married. That was John's take on the Who. Um, I have participated in a little fanzine called Join Together. It was put together, I believe, by Kat Saylor, and it is a compendium of essays, musical pieces, and art. If you are in the online Who fan, you may recognize some of these names, especially the artists. We have Kitty Tomlin, um, Carnaby Beats, Morella Moon, Minty, and people like that. And Skipple Fritz. I hope I get that Skipple Fritz. I hope I get that name right. But if it's possible to link it, that's awesome. I have an essay in it about just that, about 3 years, 21 or until we get married. And we loved it. It's free, and we'd love for people to read it. It commemorates the final tour and our thoughts and that kind of thing. And it is exceptional and wonderful. So
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, we'll definitely link it in the comments. So yeah, encourage everyone to go and check that out. That does sound
absolutely.
really good. Um, Yeah, and I just want to make clear, I might have a couple of little minor points about the Who's current sound, but in general, I really think it works. And it's not quite the acoustic stripped back thing, but
No,
it is kind of stripped back a little bit sound wise, but I think it really works for the most part. I really do.
I really do too. Like I said, I get the orchestra because, as Pete says, now I don't have to play as much, and replacing what do you replace John with? You got to replace John with a full orchestra to get those harmonics. But the stripped down Who was lovely. And it was great. Like I said, again, I think it's more fitting that if you're closing the door, that you close the door as that stripped down. You can't have those four kids on the Gold Hawk, in the Gold Hawk basement or whatever, all sweaty and throwing things around. But you can certainly get close to that, and that's what they have achieved.
Yeah, fair play to them. And for anyone who's going to see him on this tour, then you're lucky bastards for a start, but yeah, I'm sure you'll all have a great time. Are there any final thoughts you want to share before we bring this to a close?
Yeah, again, if you are on the fence, if you're out there and you're kind of on the fence about whether or not this works, it absolutely does. And as a Who fan, like I said, I feel like it's important to kind of be there at the, if you were there, wherever you came in, whether if you came in, like I said, on that sweaty dance floor in Brighton, or you came in, in 75, or the Cow Palace, or you came in 78 like I did, or you came in 82, or you came in 2000, or you came in last week. I think it's important to be there, to be present. Um, and it I just thank you guys, and thank you for coming out one last time and letting us all say goodbye and letting us all be together in that place with you, because you mean so much to us. You mean so much to us, and maybe it's hard to kind of understand because maybe you can't see us beyond the glare of the stage, but we're there. And thank you, and thank you for giving us that ability to say goodbye to you.
Very well said. Yeah, that's a great way to end the video. And
Thank you.
yeah, for me personally, I mean, when I started the podcast, there was literally nothing going on with the Who really. So
Yeah.
I feel kind of grateful that I've, it's sort of, you know, it's into its second season now, and there's this farewell tour happening at the same time, and I'm kind of grateful to be, doing my thing as that's happening. So yeah,
Exactly. In fact, this week I've dubbed it kind of Who Week, because I had the Who on Saturday. This coming Sunday, we have a local group of, it's a band, but they're also kind of theater kids, and they're doing a big. And they had this planned long before the Who announced the tour. I mean, I bought these tickets back in November, I want to say, but they have a whole Tommy slash Who tribute happening, so I'll be seeing that on Sunday.
awesome.
So it's 100% Who week for me.
Oh, that's brilliant. And
Yeah,
yeah, I might as well. Speaking of tributes, I might as well do a final plug for the 100 Club gig in Oxford Street that I'm going to be at, interviewing Dante DiCarlo, who we mentioned earlier, about his new book. And there'll be a set by Who's Next, his tribute band, and support from a band called the Hornets. So that's 4th of September, and there's still tickets available. I
nice.
guess I should put a link in the comments now if I said that, but
Absolutely.
in the description, sorry, not the comments. But
Yes.
and yeah, as I said, season 2 of the podcast is currently running, and there's extra episodes and exclusive live stream shows for members for anyone who might be interested in such stuff. It's only £3 or $3 a month, but I'll put a link in the description for the Patreon page where you can sign up to be a member. And
Yes.
you'll be seeing a lot more Bets Crockett in some of those bonus episodes. So
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I don't know how people feel about it. They might be like, "Oh no, not again," but I'm happy to do it.
I can't believe anyone will be thinking that. Um, but yeah, I think we'll end it there. God bless the you, I say. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.